pull the right one. Here we go. Okay, I thought the picture looked different. Okay, here we go. Slideshow. Much better. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So so we're talking about the foundations of sustainability planning for our community-rooted projects. So that's the conversation today. Before we begin, a couple of virtual logistics. Mute yourself if you're not speaking. Everyone will get an opportunity to speak, so be ready to find that unmute button in just a moment here. Feel free to use the chat for any questions, any reactions, and any activities throughout our conversation today. I love participation. And we've got Brianna and Leah on here monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, you have any challenges, or things you want to share, let them know. And if I can't see it, they'll make sure to bring it to my attention. We'll use the chat with different prompts and polls throughout. Having your cameras on is really encouraged. Not only does it help me to see whether or not you're following along and understanding or looking confused and I need to repeat myself or clarify, but it's also nice for your colleagues to feel a part of the room. Resources and a digital worksheet link are going to be posted in the chat. And so we'll share that with you in just a moment because you have a workbook for today. But I want to start with who's in the room. So I want to welcome all of you from the Community Power Network, and let's get started. So start by typing your name, your organization, and the community you serve into the chat. Your name, your organization, and the community you serve. And then give me one word that describes your organization's biggest sustainability challenge right now. You know, what's the stone in your shoe around sustainability? Because we're going to use the answers that you provide today to shape our discussion. So go ahead, and I know I gave you a lot of stuff to put in the chat, but let's start there and see what we got. I'm going to type mine in just so that I can see how long it takes everybody to do this. Okay, so I'm Alicia Harley, IntuWork Consulting. Okay, so we've got Maria from Bernalillo, well, I pronounced it terribly, County Home Visiting Work Group in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I think we met Maria.
We have.
Okay. I thought so. Okay. Your sustainability challenge is funding, right?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So you know what? Pronounce the name of your organization properly for me, Maria.
It's the Bernalillo County Home Visiting Work Group. You said it correctly. It's good.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, we've got Ben from United Indians of All Tribes Foundation, serving Native veterans and sustainability challenges competition. You know what, Ben, can you tell me, what do you mean by competition?
Sorry, I'm going to go on camera in a second, but I don't know, I was just thinking about how when it's hard not to have a scarcity mindset, especially with the reduction of federal funds and social services, and there's going to be a lot more competition for the grants that do exist. So, yeah, thinking about putting all your hard work into a grant and then receiving a rejection for one way or the other, it's part of the work, but that competition, I think, is a challenge.
Got it. So you're talking about the competition for very scarce resources at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, we've got Christine Hollis, TA support for the Bernalillo County Home Visiting Work Group. As a retired health communication specialist, I still serve communities in New Mexico. Wonderful. Finding other means of sustainability than traditional funding, especially when it comes to the federal government. Good stuff. Okay. All right. Anything you want to add to that, Chris? All right, we've got Thomas Cotton, Redemption and Advance Alliance, Gang Redevelopment, and Sustainability Challenge is funding. Okay, consistent theme here. We've got Beverly from Community Connector in Nashville, Tennessee. Beverly, what's your sustainability challenge? Do you want to share? Or are you still working on it? Okay, maybe Beverly stepped away. Angelica Virgil with Bernardino. Okay, hey, the Bernardino County folks are here. We serve children under the age of 5. Our biggest challenge is definitely funding streams. Okay, got it. Marvin from Seattle, Washington, funding. Okay. What's the name of your organization, Marvin?
The Lived Experience Coalition, Survive to Thrive.
Okay, Survive to Thrive. Okay, all right, I remember that one. Wonderful. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming. Isaac, also from Survive to Thrive, Community Action Research Hub, Black and Brown, Indigenous, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders, and funding. Okay. Oh, Beverly said continuing funding to see the progress made in this grant. We'll love it. Okay. Keisha, LEC as well, community activist, artist, funding and engagement. So Keisha, tell me a little bit more about the engagement piece. What do you mean by that?
Basically, just like trying to get more people to come to our meetings on Friday to gather resources, be involved in our conversation, in our agenda, and just to kind of grow our whole coalition.
Okay. That is helpful. Thank you. Okay, and then Tiffany from Boston under the Institute of Community Health, community research representative of someone lived experience in homelessness. The biggest thing we face is wrapping up all our lived experience and applying it to our work, which just starting to do with our first research study we are conducting with other individuals. Sustainability through their homelessness period. Okay. All right. Yeah. So you feel like you're just getting momentum and want be able to continue. Is that right?
Yes. It's like we're trying, we're all coming together as I'm in the second cohort, and it's utilizing the first cohort's their experience and our experience, but as the cohort second, and coming together to really shape out this study that we're trying to conduct. And it's changing each and every time, but it's just how depth we have as far as having our experience in this field. So
got it.
Thank you.
Point well taken. Thank you. Okay. And then Brother Token, Lived Experience Coalition as well. King and Pierce County, Black, Brown, Indigenous, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander men and youth. Systems adoption. So Brother Token, tell me more about that. What do you mean by systems adoption?
Yes, thank you. So it says one word that describes your organization's biggest sustainability challenge right now. And I believe that the sustainability challenge would be systems adoption for community governance.
Okay. Community governance of the research, or?
I mean, if you want to go all the way to the point, research within itself is the knowledge exchange that empowers the people who then, have that knowledge. So I believe that the best thing I'd say is community governance over knowledge exchange.
Okay. The knowledge. Okay. All right. Got it. What's shared, what's held, what's implemented, what's held, all of that. Okay, thank you. Chris Hollis.
Opening my big fat mouth again. I hear what Brother Token is saying, and my own thought is whenever we talk about sustainability, especially for a lot of us who are nonprofits and community-based organizations, the big issue to me for sustainability is systems change, basically, or transformation, because we're sort of locked into this system that basically said in the United States, when we provide these social services, when we have the support system underneath, it's all funded by, either the federal government, if it's putting out the money, or by foundations or anything else. But in other words, it's contributions, it's money coming into organizations. And this is the way we think about how we live. We have to keep going for funding constantly like that. And I think unless there's major systems change in the way we support services that help people, I don't, the sustainability is just such a big question right now because the funding is being cut so much and our system is changing. So anyway, I just wanted to tack that on.
Yeah, no, you're both of you are pulling on a very interesting thread, especially as we talk about, the community power network, right? I can't remember a time when funding wasn't an issue, right? And so, if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying is, how do we encourage the systems to change in such a way that funding isn't really the issue? It's it's the real work, like engagement, which one of you mentioned before, or it's legacy. It's more about equipping the next generation to pick up the work. It's almost as if I'm hearing correctly, what you're saying is that because we can't get past this funding issue, we can't get to the real problems that make the work sustainable. Is that right? Am I hearing you correctly?
I think that's partially it. I think Ben had mentioned also, I think it was Ben, that competition is a problem. I mean, the way the system is set up, at least in New Mexico, is if any nonprofit is going to go for continual funding, if they're going to the legislature or anything else, it puts every single nonprofit in competition with the other one to go for that same amount of funding. And it's like we have a very narrow view of how we're going to sustain ourselves. It's got to be a continual process of every year getting a new grant or something else. An interesting point, I'm just thinking, it may not be totally correct, but the Bernalillo County Home Visiting Work Group has recently put together a sort of referral system that has a platform that will refer mothers for this. Right now, there is no charge for this. And that system was created through funding from a foundation and everything else. On the other hand, the state itself is putting money into another profit-making organization that has put their platform in for the whole state to use. And they've not only got funding from the state itself, state government, but they also charge fees for this. So it's kind of odd to look at, like sort of similar kinds of services and how one might not be charged at all, but how do you sustain that? And one that has a way of charging, for example, it's just a way of looking at something, oddly.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get into that. Let me just flip right ahead here. Anyway, so you guys have already outlined the challenge. Federal grants are increasingly competitive. Boards, we didn't talk about this, but they're resistant to fundraising at times. Individual donors, we haven't seen a whole lot of growth in that space, although reports keep saying that that's an untapped area, but we'll talk about why that's challenging. And then you're absorbing most of the risk with the fewest resources, right? So we're going to talk about funding mix. Some of you have actually heard some of this, but we're going to take a deeper dive into it today. We'll talk about individual giving strategies, corporate partnerships, and earned revenue, which I have a couple of new things to share around earned revenue. Board giving is your foundation, and then your 90-day action plan. But if you haven't seen it before, your foundation's toolkit, there is a link. Leah's going to put this in the chat for you as well. You can use your phone if you're on your phone. Excuse me. I will apologize. I feel fine, but I was in New York last week where the cottonwood was out of control. So my allergies have not calmed down yet. So I have a terrible cough. I apologize for that. But feel free to scan that code, download your toolkit. If you're someplace where you can print it, that might be helpful for you. It is a PDF. So if you have the ability, you can type into it. But more than anything, I just want you to see some of the tools that we're making available for you. And then for future sessions, we'll actually send them out beforehand. But yeah, you have that toolkit there for you to use as we talk through some of the options today around sustainability. Just a little bit about me. I am the founder and CEO of IntuWork Consulting. I've helped more than 43 organizations transform their culture. I've supported nonprofit leaders in securing millions of dollars in funding, and I've guided a number of leaders to amplify their impact. If you guys are familiar with Kellogg's community-based public health initiative back in the 90s, that's where I cut my teeth, working for community-based public health initiatives in Michigan. And, my job, I see it as, helping to build sustainable strategies that help you advance your mission. Some of our clients from across the country, in the past, we have had a few international, clients, but we love working with community-based organizations because, again, that's where I got my start. But we've also worked with universities and others. So we start with understanding your current funding mix. You guys know this better than anybody else. And if you downloaded the workbook, the first or the second page is a big circle where you can estimate your funding portfolio. So we talked about it. A number of you depend upon government grants. That's the federal, the state, and or local city governments. The larger cities, oftentimes their county health departments or city health departments will provide funding for similar work. All of you here are supported by a foundation grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. We get individual donations. We depend upon our boards to contribute. Some of you have corporate partnerships. Many of you have special events. You have fundraising campaigns, community events, from chicken dinners to, some of the most expensive galas, out there. Those special events are key for some of you. We'll talk a little bit about earned revenue because I think that is where people are being the most innovative right now. And it gives you opportunities that lessen the competition. And we'll talk about what that means. And then there's planned giving. And, as I've said before many times, if you don't have a planned giving strategy, at least begin thinking about it, begin communicating about it, at least putting something on your website to let people know that if they want to include your organization in their bequest or their legacy donations, that you will accept it. Because we are seeing a number of planned giving bequests become game changers for community-based organizations. Is there anyone here who has a strong planned giving strategy that you want to share? Any of you? Any of you thinking about it, investigating planned giving? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. There are any number of organizations for very little, if any, charge to you, especially the bank where you probably have your checking account, will help you set up a process for planned giving so that if someone wants to donate a gift that they're, as a part of their will or their trust, they will typically help you set that up for free. And if you go to your bank and you say, hey, I don't have a planned giving approach, can you help me? They would be more than willing to do that with you. Okay, so the first activity is understanding your funding mix, right? All of you are getting funding from foundations. Some of you are also getting government funds. Some of you have a strong individual giving portfolio. Others of you have diversified your portfolio. You've got not only individuals, foundations, and government, but you also have corporate sponsors and you have special events in there. And part of it, part of the game is trying to diversify and recognizing, where you have particular strengths. And I would be more than happy to have a one-on-one consultation with any of you to talk through, what might be good strategies for your individual organizations. Special events can be very time consuming. You have to have a decent sized team in order to do, large galas, but if you're, a yoga studio, you can have special events to invite in, folks that may not necessarily be your standard patrons, but who are willing to support for those special events. Corporate sponsors, if you happen to be a yoga studio, you might be able to, get donations of those mats and all kinds of other equipment related to it. Anyway, there's a funding mix assessment in there for you to do on your own and look for those patterns and try to think about, where do you need to, diversify your portfolio. Individual giving strategies, I promised that we would talk about some of the uniquenesses here. Okay, so this giving pyramid, individuals are the greatest untapped resource for funding. And I know that there are many people out there that will tell you, you need to get the big grants, that you can't really make any money, trying to go after individual donations. It is not true. Individual donations is one of the biggest untapped resources of most community-based organizations. You start off with folks giving $25 here or there, and then they become monthly donors. And that $25 a month very quickly, becomes $250 to $300 a year. And then as people continue to get to know you and understand your work, they move into that mid-level, moving people up this pyramid from monthly donors to your growth zone, and your growth zone ultimately becomes your major donors over time, and then planned giving. Now, when we look at the economy the way it is and the current administration that we have in place, this is particularly challenging. The tax cuts make it a lot harder for people to get a tax write-off for any donations that they make to you. But there are significant, the biggest level of growth is with donor advised funds. Anybody here have a donor advised fund approach? Do you know what I'm talking about here? Do I need to spend a minute explaining donor advised funds? Are you shaking your head, Chris? You're one of the few people I can see. Okay, all right. What is a donor advised fund? Who wants to tell us? Anybody? A donor advised fund is a relatively new vehicle that was created in 2020 under Trump's first administration that allows donors to get a tax write-off the moment that they put the money into the fund. And they usually put the fund someplace like, the New Mexico Community Trust, or the San Francisco Valley Trust. They put them in banks and trust that manage the funds for them. And they sit there and they earn interest, significant amount of interest over time. And there's no real incentive for the people who put the money into these donor advised funds to spend it. So what that means for us is, we have to make sure that we're letting people know that if they have a donor advised fund, we have a way of accepting their money. Again, this is a situation where you have to talk to your banker and say, I want to accept money from donor advised funds. Can you help me set this up? Because you cannot treat money from a donor advised fund the same way that you would treat any other donation. Because that person has already gotten their tax write-off, if you send them a tax receipt, for them to use in their tax return, they could get dinged for double dipping. The moment they donate their money, they get their tax write-off. And so you have to treat them separately and give them an acknowledgement of the donation, but not a tax receipt. So it creates a little bit of a processing challenge, but that is where a lot of money is sitting right now. Billions of dollars are sitting in these donor advised funds, not being spent. And we have to make sure that people know that we can accept money from their donor advised funds and that we have processes in place. Keisha?
Does that mean that it doesn't come with like guidelines or restrictions and things like that, or does that is that like case by case?
No, the nice thing about donor advised funds generally, they can tell you it's a grant if they want to put some restrictions on it. But typically donor advised funds are unrestricted dollars, completely unrestricted dollars. So that's the kind of money you want. All of the money in this pyramid in general is unrestricted funds. That's why I'm spending a few minutes here, because I know that that's exactly what you need and or want. And so again, make sure that you've talked to your banker and have a process for accepting donor advised funds. Chris?
So if my understanding is correct, those who put the money into the donor advisor fund don't put any stipulations about, I want such and such an organization to get this or to have access to it. So there's nothing, it's up to the bank who's running the trust as to whom to give it?
No, it's still up to the individuals.
Okay.
But it's up to them on how they want to spend it. But the bank is never going to say, hey, you're not spending your money. So unless that individual decides, oh, this place takes money from donor advised funds and they are ready and willing to accept it, and I'm ready and willing to give, it doesn't happen. So, again, it's a situation where the onus is put on us as organizations to make sure that there are processes in place to accept it. Because otherwise it's just sitting out there gaining interest and not being used. And I would suspect, I don't know this for a fact, I'm not a financial advisor, but I suspect that if people pass away with money sitting in their donor advised fund, it's according to however their will, that becomes another planned giving issue, right? Because those dollars just sit there. Any other questions about donor advised funds or planned giving? I just wanted to make sure that you're thinking about this process and recognizing that people may come in at small dollars, but those small dollars add up. And if you've ever paid attention to political campaigns, $5 a week or $5 a month, adds up pretty quickly when you've got 100 people giving $5 a month. So fundraising, it's not about asking strangers; it's about the people that already care about your work. And you probably know more of them than you think. You'd be amazed. So oftentimes I ask people to use your workbook. In your workbook, you've got a list of 50, you got 50 slots there. And I want you to take a few moments and just begin to think about, who are potential donors, who are people that care about your work that you haven't tapped into. Don't edit yourself. Don't worry about whether or not they're wealthy, because again, we don't need, tens of thousands of dollars. We need, 50 people who are willing to give $50 to make a significant impact here. And then that, begins to grow, especially when we invest it on our people. I mean, in our accounts. And you may not know them well at this particular moment, but, given the chance and the opportunity, you can get to know them. So if you think about folks that have asked you, what do you do? What is your organization about? Invite me to your events. I want to volunteer. Keeping track of all of those folks ultimately is going to help you get to that list of 50 people who care. And then, and even if they can't make a donation themselves, they may be able to introduce you to folks who can. Okay. So when you get the opportunity, make sure you jot down your list. Anybody surprised at the number of people that come to mind when you ask yourself that question? No. I was really surprised the first time that I did it. I just sat down and off the top of my head, I got 35 names. It took me a little while to get to 50. But got there and began working that list, and started with not necessarily going straight up to folks and asking for money, but, inviting them to come to events, inviting them for the opportunity to learn more about what we do, and the money follows. Any questions about any of that? Okay. So when you've done that, you want to circle your top 10, those who will be most interested in supporting your mission, and then choose 3 of those people to contact. You don't have to do it all at one given time, but make sure that while you're writing grants, while you're submitting your proposals and the like, that you're also, thinking about the donations, because these unrestricted funds are invaluable and make a huge difference when it's time to do payroll. So I promise that we're going to spend the most of our time here in corporate partnerships and earn revenue. So the point that I want to make here is to think beyond sponsorship and begin to think about partnership. Sponsorship can be transactional. It's usually one-time dollars. It's not an ongoing commitment. We entice people to do it by giving them logo placement or marketing opportunities. But partnership is when you find organizations or companies that share your values, or they share your customers, they share outcomes, and an ongoing relationship. Many of us have heard the story about an organization who realized that as they were giving out gift cards for grocery shopping, that people were taking them to the local Walmart or Costco. And so they went to Walmart and said, hey, we're noticing that all of these cards that we're giving out are being used in your store. We need you, or would like for you to make a donation. And it was a very easy ask, right? Because they know they're going to get it back. So when you find organizations that are really partners, that share your values or your customers, you can develop that ongoing relationship, and that sponsorship goes from being a one-time commitment to excuse me, a long-term partnership. So think about who might be good partners for you, and always think local first. That lessens the competition. So one of the examples is a community health center and a local grocery store. So a local grocery store gives $5,000 to be a platinum sponsor at the health fair. They get a logo, table in the vendor hall, and a mention in the program, but it's that one-time check and it's that one-day presence. With the partnership, say, why don't we work together on a healthy neighborhoods initiative? You both want healthier communities, you both serve the same neighborhood, and you want to reduce food insecurity and get better nutrition. So what it might look like is they host monthly cooking demos in stores using your nutrition educators, and then they donate gift cards for your food prescription program. You do joint press releases, you have co-branded materials. It's a true partnership that ends up resulting in about $15,000 in value between the cash and the in-kind donations. All right, another example, youth services organization and the credit union. For sponsorship, the credit union will buy $3,000 at your table to buy a table. And then they send 8 employees that you hope are interested, but they may or may not care about your mission. If we were to think about it as a partnership, excuse me, the credit union would partner with you on youth financial literacy, and build economic mobility for future account holders. They provide volunteer financial coaches for your after school program, and you bring youth participants to tour their branch, and if they and their parents are willing, to open savings accounts. It's a win-win for both of you. They fund the program materials and the incentives, and you not only get the $5,000, but you get volunteer hours, you get youth outcomes that both organizations can celebrate, and it's a part of your impact. And then when it's time to write your next grant, you can talk about successful initiatives that you've had with community organizations and or your partners. So let's talk about you. What kinds of partnerships have you all developed with local organizations, or what are you thinking about? Did this spark any ideas? Who can you partner with? Or do you have questions about partnership? No? Everybody's got their partnerships all set? You already doing this? This is a quiet group. Are you guys always this quiet? Is it just me? Okay. All right. Well, I will keep going. All right. Earned revenue reframe. So the concept is oftentimes as nonprofits, we get a little nervous about earned revenue, about selling things, putting our nonprofit status at risk. But we're not talking about becoming a business, and we're not suggesting anything that will put your nonprofit status at risk. The IRS says that as long as you are leveraging your expertise, and you're doing it in a way that is, a service that you would have provided anyway, or feels in scope. It is perfectly okay to earn revenue. Oftentimes we forget that hospitals, universities are nonprofits that earn revenue and charge a pretty penny for their services. They're not cheap, and so we don't have to limit ourselves, on the prices that we charge when we're charging a fair price for the value that people are getting. Now, of course, we want to be sensitive to our community, the people that we serve. And as much as we can offer things free of charge to the people that we serve, we want to. So I'm going to share with you. So this example, an after-school arts program offered free community arts classes after school to youth in their community. Their earned revenue opportunity was to offer adult workshops and rent out their studios. So the reframe is, not that we're going to open a for-profit art studio on side of the one that we have. It's that our space sits empty during the day. So what if we offered adult painting workshops or rented studio space to local artists? That could look like Saturday morning adult workshops for $45 per person, or weekday studio rentals for $150 per month per artist. So if we did 2 workshops a month with 15 people, and we had 5 studio artists working during the day, that's an extra, $2,100 a month, which can make a difference. Mission aligned, it has to be mission aligned. So you're building the creative community, and then you have unrestricted revenue that subsidizes those free youth programs. So they're leveraging an existing asset, that space and their expertise, without changing their mission. Another example is the community health clinic. So they provide healthcare to uninsured or underinsured families. Their earned revenue opportunity is fee for service for corporate wellness programs because they're in a community with a number of businesses. So the reframe is not we need to compete with corporate wellness companies. It's local employers keep asking if we can do flu shots and health screenings for their employees. So offering on-site health screenings, flu clinics, wellness workshops to local businesses, charging $50 an employee for a basic screening package. If we got 10 companies to do that at 50 employees each, then that's $25,000 a year. It's still mission aligned and it's unrestricted revenue. The key is that you're serving the same community just through a different funding model. Thoughts? How might this work for you? Want me to try with your organization? Go ahead, Maria.
Okay, we were in the process of trying to work with a church here to have classes for maternal health and meet with the pregnant mothers and all. But we were trying to figure out how do we get the money to do that. Some of them are low income and cannot afford to pay. So how do we pay the trainers, the volunteers that come, and even the mothers a stipend for showing up? And we were trying to figure that out. The church said they would help with the facility and the daycare, but where do we get the rest of the money? Do we buy a grant? What do we do? So this is an example of how we could do this, but I don't know how we would do it.
Yeah, and so there are a lot of moving parts in that, right? Because you need clinicians to provide the services. Now, do you already have the clinicians or?
We have some of them, yes, but we would like to give them a stipend for doing it. We know volunteerism is at its highest. It's hard. But yet, it's their expertise we want to pay them for.
Yeah. Well, so you may have to start with some volunteers and make sure that, that particular people aren't burdened, but I can totally understand wanting to provide a stipend for it. So yes, you could write a grant for it. You can ask around, and especially within a church community, every once in a while, there's a person who is kind of the go-to to donate, to at least kickstart the program, or at least help you get started. The process of billing for those kinds of services is really complicated and probably more expensive than it's worth. And I'm sure you've explored that already. But I wonder if for the services that you're planning to provide, is there a way to partner with another organization that is already providing them to people of means to donate some time to provide it to people not of means? The same way that lawyers at big law firms provide pro bono support, for a certain number of clients each year. Can you reach out to some of the organizations that are a bit bigger, have greater resources, and ask for some volunteerism there? What are you thinking, Maria?
Yeah, we've talked about that, and that's definitely a consideration. We do not want the mothers to have to pay for anything, especially with gas involved to get there. And, just a stipend. Hey, we appreciate your time. Here you go. And they'll come. We've had meetings before where we say, hey, we're going to give you a $25 stipend if you show up, and they'll show up. But it's how we do that. How do we get that money to do that?
Yeah. So I don't know the status of Medicaid in New Mexico. But I do know that when I was the director of coordinated school health for Chicago Public Schools, we were having a terrible time trying to get kids vaccinated. Our childhood vaccination rate was around 87% at that time. And because the healthcare insurers we're actively trying to get people to register for Medicaid. We went to them and said, if you will donate space, a face painter, a balloon artist, and some food, we can get people there. And some portion of those people will register. And they were incredibly helpful by, donating something that wasn't all that expensive for them, but meant a whole lot for us. So maybe you can't get necessarily a $25 gift card, but if the local pharmacy can donate, I don't know, I don't know what your pharmacies are. We have Walgreens and CVS here, but talking to them about, can you donate CVS gift cards, or something like that to help people get there. There are ways. It's about thinking about who's aligned, who also wants what you want. And so if you're talking about pregnant mothers having healthy births, right? Did I hear that correctly? Yeah, the people that are aligned with that are baby formula companies, car seat companies, anybody who wants to sell them something after that baby is born. And so reaching out to them and saying, hey, we'll let you do a demo for our folks if you, donate X, Y, and Z. It's having that specific ask. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay, Chris?
I don't know if this would be anything that would work, and I think I've talked to Maria about this once. I mean, obviously, as you just mentioned, the insurance companies would probably be interested in something like this, but I've sometimes wondered, given that employees these days are probably pushing their employers for a lot more in the way of benefits or something like that, or at least they were, until probably a year ago or something like that. But to connect more with the human resources offices of bigger businesses about the idea of providing training, for instance, for the families of their employees, especially if there is a young woman who's about to become a mother or something like that, and providing perhaps the space for their employees' families to have that kind of training, and then further development of pieces, especially if a company is something like infant nutrition or something more with early learning or something like that. But to go directly maybe more to the human resources side that provides the benefits on doing this rather than trying to go to a CEO or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of those organizations have community outreach departments. They definitely have communications people. I would start there, because those are good opportunities for them to show that they're aligned with supporting the community.
There are also, you had mentioned once, there is definitely one credit union here in New Mexico that does financial literacy programs and probably would collaborate a lot, and has done, I know, with the schools, at least in doing that. But it might be an interesting component to add into mothers who are receiving home visitors on that, in terms of thinking about, how now you've got a baby, your budget might change and things like that. So, I mean, there are some organizations here in New Mexico. We don't have as many. We don't have, sort of as many community foundations or anything as other places, but that might be a place to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trying to think about who I know in Albuquerque and in New Mexico, and I'm a little limited. I know Arizona a lot better. My son's at the University of Arizona, sorry. Yeah, but I'll keep thinking about that. But yeah, it's trying to be creative, and sometimes it just sort of comes to you while you're listening to a podcast or watching a commercial. Like, oh my gosh, they're interested in healthy births too, and let's figure out if we're aligned. And and the community outreach section is usually the best folks. Anybody else? What are some creative ways to earn revenue? There's so I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Centers for Arts and Technology. It's a movement that started out of Pittsburgh, and there are about 8 or 9 CATs, Centers for Arts and Technology, across the country. Recently watched a documentary about the founder, and one of the things that he did, he was very much into clay, and as a young Black man growing up in Pittsburgh, his friends thought he was a little crazy being as into clay as he was and making pottery. But he really felt in his sort of soul that it was empowering to be able to create something in a world where people feel disempowered so frequently. And so he kept trying to figure out, how do I pay for these clay making classes that I'm teaching in the center that I'm building, which, if you look up the CATS movement, I mean, it's a really well-funded set of organizations now. But what he did to begin was he saw people paying a lot of money for orchids, and he knew how to grow them, sorry. And so he created an orchid farm downtown Pittsburgh, and sold them to people for $40, $50 a pop, and funded his programs, which was and got quite good, and they became known for having the most beautiful orchids. I've seen people sell gift cards, art studios where they have students making their own cards, and then they sell them at Christmas time, or Christmas ornaments, any of those kinds of things. So, another way is to think about not only the space that you have, can you rent the space out, the things that you make or create that you can sell, the things that bake sales are coming back. I hadn't seen a bake sale in a long time, but bake sales they seem to be on the comeback, and an organization down the street made $4,000 on a Saturday, with a bake sale, which very minimal effort on their part. That was kind of the cool thing.
One of the organizations that I am on the board of, it's a community-based newspaper that comes out every month. And one way that they are fundraising is getting other smaller organizations to donate 50, I think it's in the UK, so £50 a month. And they also offer, with that membership, because it's part of a membership, you get a post on their social media. So capitalizing on that, they have a pretty decent following, especially the localized area. So adding advertisement, obviously they only are offering that to people who are aligned in their values. But the other way they do it is they are consultants for other communities who want to have local journalism. And so a lot of the communities, SAIH, they're researchers. So what community do you have access to? And, maybe a university who's doing research, you could really foster that in a way that honors the local expertise and who you already have a network with. So being a consultant in the areas that you guys are already experts in is a possibility too.
Yeah, I've heard any number of executive directors and leaders in nonprofits be nervous about offering consulting services, and would that be outside the mission? But any expertise that you have, you can use that to benefit the organization. It doesn't put your nonprofit status at risk, as long as it's in line with the mission and is used as a way to support the mission. Okay, We've got a few more slides. So we mentioned a little bit board giving. Anybody having trouble getting their board to give? Are you guys all pros at that? What were you saying, Maria?
We've never even asked them to give. It's hard enough to get them to volunteer, more or less, to give.
So, when you say it's hard to get them to volunteer, tell me what you mean.
Showing up to meetings and all.
Okay.
Volunteerism is a lot. I mean, people are volunteering, especially in early childhood, quite a bit. And it's like, wow, it's a lot. So to ask them to also now give money, they're mostly nonprofits, so they can't do it out of their own fund. But, I don't know. It's just very hard. I think that would be hard for us.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. One is that I'm sure it's you see in our applications from time to time what percentage of your board gives. There have been situations where I've asked each board member to give $5 so that we can say we have 100% board giving. Sometimes it's getting to that number, whatever that is. And my view is that we put our money where our mouth is. Now, oftentimes we don't have much, we'll give what we can. And if $20 is what we can give in a year, then that's what we can give in a year. But I do think it's important to, one, be able to say that you have 100% board giving and that your board is bought in, because part of the question that funders and especially major donors are going to ask is what percentage of your board is giving. And if you don't have your board members bought in and willing to open up their own pockets, then the question becomes, should I? Because we live in a world where, we put our money where our mouth is. And if we really believe in something, then typically we're willing to open up our wallet. And, you don't have to ask them for much. Something symbolic is helpful. Just that you can be able to say that you've got 100% of your board that's giving. But I hear you, volunteerism is tough. And nobody has enough time. We all have a shortage of time. But part of that is, we want to make sure that there are people on our board who are all in. And when people are all in, we know it, I know how I'm feeling about an organization based upon whether or not I want to go to the board meeting. If I'm on a board and I'm no longer interested in going to the board meetings, then it's time for me to come off, because the passion is gone. And I want to make sure that I'm working for organizations that I know, that I love, that I want to support, and that I'm willing to do the work for. And I've seen some people who, they'll say to me, I've been on this board for 20 years and I'm exhausted. And so, my response to that is that then it's time to think about succession planning. Who is your replacement? Who have you been talking about how fantastic this organization is? Who have you been sharing the story with, so that they're willing to roll up their sleeves and help with the work? Because volunteerism is hard. It's not rewarded. Everybody's working 2 and 3 jobs trying to make ends meet, but I'm a firm believer that we do what we want to do. And if we really want to, we find the time. Keisha, did you have a comment?
I did actually. I know one of the examples I have, excuse me, from experience, especially like during hardships and things like that, is you know pouring back into your own board or your own coalition or organization. So having each other's helping each other with our own barriers as let's say board or leadership team or what have you, crossing out the barriers or the things that we're going through as a team first, to make sure everyone that is involved is able to show up and engage and is properly acknowledged. And I think that could be another maybe way to respond to this question if the funder asks, how did you, I guess, give back to your own board is support, 100%. So I think that'll be my response if we're all still, living paycheck to paycheck and doing the best we can, and we're not really able to give out money just yet. A way that we're showing our support is by, giving to our own members first. That way we can all show up and show strength, and then once we're all at a level of being able to give outwards beyond, the work that we're doing and the time we're putting in, then that's where that strength is growing from after everyone is fully supported.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point, right? It's that it's a two-way street, right? We have to invest in our board the same way that we want our boards to invest in our organizations, and making it easy for them to say yes. Mhm. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Well, some of the things that we hear is that, I didn't know giving was expected of me. I give my time. Why do I have to give money? I can't afford to give anything, or, asking my friends and family to donate feels awkward. Or, sometimes people get the tough question of, I don't see where the money goes. So, why should I give? Um, and those are all indicative of them needing tools, knowing and understanding what the expectation is. Yes, we give our time and our treasure. We can always afford things that we feel are important. If they don't know where the money goes, then we need to make sure that, they have a clear understanding. Those of you that were in Denver, I showed you our cost you cards. Oftentimes, when board members say asking feels awkward or I don't know what to say, having something like, this plastic credit card that they can keep in their wallet that says, the Center for Advancing Domestic Peace, as a board member, I know that they have 28 years of proven transformation among those who've caused harm. They have a 75% completion rate with 785 plus clients served annually. And they have experienced professionals working to break cycles of intergenerational violence. It's telling people about what you do. Youth empowerment services. They empower young adults aging out of foster care. Over 80% achieve stable housing and employment, and through life skill coaching, skills training, and continued community support. And then you have a QR code there for a donation. Makes it easy for them. If someone says, what's that organization that you're on the board of, it gives them the tools that they need, and you can, print those on, business card paper or, on construction paper, and, use a paper cutter to slice them up, so that people have them, but making sure that your board has the tools to understand what it is that, that they need to do, and how to make an ask. And every board retreat that I have done, and I've done probably at least 20, if not 30, when we role play the ask, people feel much more comfortable. Generally, boards double their fundraising after you do some role playing with them around how do you ask. It's just a matter of getting comfortable, because oftentimes I think we think that that we're asking for ourselves. But we're not asking for ourselves. We're asking for our constituents who need support. We're asking for these pregnant mothers who need free care. We're not asking for ourselves. We're asking to help those who need the help most when they need it the most. And it's a lot easier when you think about it that way. Isaac, were you going to say something?
Yes, ma'am. I had a two-part question. So the first thing is, what do you look for when looking for board members, and what do you mean by role playing asking?
Sure. So when we're looking for board members, the first thing I want to know is, why do they care about our mission? I'm really looking for a personal connection to our mission. You know, one organization that I'm on the board of, they serve homeless veterans, right? And so, you know, I ask people, why do you want to help homeless veterans? And oftentimes they'll say, you know, I was a homeless veteran, or my dad, you know, was a homeless veteran, or, you know, my sister is a veteran and her 3 kids were out on the street and VOA helped them. So that's the first thing that I'm looking for. The second thing that I'm looking for is a willingness to roll up their sleeves and, you know, be willing to help. And so if they have experience in marketing, if they have experience in fundraising, if they have experience in law, are you willing to donate, you know, some of your time and expertise to this board to help us be better? And 3, you know, are they willing to commit to the meetings? You know, most boards, you know, at most meet once a month. Most of them meet, you know, every other month, or maybe even once a quarter. And so can you give me 2 hours every other month to go over some things and provide some guidance? So that's what I'm looking for in board members. When I talk about role playing, I'm talking about giving them some talking points and letting them practice. And so I usually will line, you know, if there's a board of 12 people, I will line 6 on one side and 6 on the other side, like we're about to have a Soul Train line. And I'll say, okay, one of you is going to be the donor, and the other one of you is going to be the board member making an ask. And I want you to use your card. And so we're going to role play. So the donor says, so you're on the board of, you know, SAIH. You know, what does SAIH do? You know, tell me about SAIH. And I'll say they transform lives through arts and technology. They unlock creativity to drive economic opportunities, and they pave the way to 21st century careers. And the only way that we can make those things happen and help these youth get jobs is through donations. And here's a QR code if you're willing to make a donation today. And so I have them practice doing that. And the first time it's hard, and they're laughing at each other and they're having fun because they completely fluffed it, right? But we do it 2 or 3 times. And by that 3rd time, they've got it. And they feel more confident in it. And so when they're out at coffee and somebody is asking, you know, so what's that organization you serve on the board of? You know, they're ready. Ready. Chris?
Just thinking about a number of the things you mentioned, and having been on a board or a couple of boards the whole time, it always strikes me as odd that the one statement you had here, I don't see where the money goes, is one of the other things I think with a number of nonprofits or community-based organizations, boards I've seen, is you get people who really don't understand what a board is and what its responsibilities are, because they would have no business saying, I don't see where the money goes, because they're responsible for that budget. And if they're putting money in, they should be asking where it goes on that. So some of the things, you know, when we're talking about this, is strengthening your board. And I think you've just pointed out something very good, is whether or not you may think you're making an ask, you're a spokesperson. You're the face out there in terms of that. And one of the things I've had the hardest time, and I am a social marketing person, and I try to think about framing of some of these differently, but I've always been surprised how many organizations, when you ask, well, what is it, you know, what is it your organization does? Why should I support it or something? They fall back on the kind of things that people do in their resumes, which is to say, here's what I do. They don't stress like achievements. Or, for example, early childhood is incredibly important and has so many pieces to it that one can say, here's why this needs support and everything else. But a lot of times, other organizations I've worked for, it's, well, here's what we do, this, instead of, here's what we've managed to do. We've been a voice to the state government for you, blah, blah, that kind of thing. And I don't know why it's so hard sometimes for people to think about the kind of achievements or whatever in there and use that for doing it. So anyway.
Yeah, no, really good point, right? Is that, you know, when asked, what does someone do? We literally answer the question, right? Well, we do, we house the homeless and we feed the hungry and we get medical exams, for pregnant women. But that's not really what they're asking. What they're really asking is, what difference are you making in this world?
Very good.
And that's the story. Love that. Okay, Dwayne.
Hello, how's everybody doing today? Sorry I'm a little late. I am doing good. And so, okay, I'm with Survive to Thrive. I'm with a Survive to Thrive team. And I just want to I'm like, when I ask organizations, what do you do, how you do it, they give me the everybody rundown. See, but when you come to Survive to Thrive, we're gonna break it down for you. We're gonna show you, we're gonna get you to understand that we understand. And we got you. We're not gonna just now out here now we just get oh yeah, they have, or I'm gonna get what I'm gonna get from them and that's it. Because I already know I know they're playing, I know they're lying to me, I know they're just using me, they're treating me differently than the next man. Just because I don't got money like this man. Because I don't look as nice as this person or this lady. You know what I'm saying? What is difference that we looking at? You can say all this, but what is the understanding? And I ask all the time, what do you do? I want to walk away like I've been taught, I've learned, I've been raised up, I've been built, strengthened up, all in just a few. That's what they're not giving out. Everybody can, like he said a lot about the resume and everything. So when you break down a resume, you break it down. They're gonna be like, okay, we know you can do that. Then boom, boom, boom. And then a boom, boom, and then extra, and then extra, and then, because you got to give him a safety to why. You know what I'm saying? Or why is this person want to hire you? You know what I'm saying? Why is they going to be devoted to you? So when you really give them that, it sits so much better. And it sits so much comfortably with people when they say they had my back. You know what I'm saying? Treat no differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let them understand, like, when it's get hard, let them know. Even when it's hard and you don't got it, guess what? We're not going nowhere. We're going to keep on going. We ain't going to stop until we make sure. And we're going to make sure you get it, no matter how long it takes. And you're right there with them and you walk with them. You do it with them. It's like a child. A child ain't going to learn nothing if you don't walk with them. You don't show them. You don't teach them. You don't give them that love. You don't be there, right there with them. We don't got that no more. That's lost. So let's bring that back. Because without that now, we got a lot of this right now, a lot of talking out here.
Yeah.
People not believing it. People are scared. They don't want to do nothing. They're running. There's no nothing, but you bring that back. That's what makes you different.
No, you're
You know what I'm saying?
absolutely right. You're absolutely right, because not only do we not want to stand there shoulder to shoulder with folks, we don't want to allow people to roll over first and then, lift up their chest from their tummies and then begin to crawl and then eventually walk and someday run. We don't allow people that time to develop those muscles, right? Fundraising is a muscle, right? We're not born out of the womb knowing how to fundraise. We're not born out of the womb knowing how to talk about our accomplishments at work. We're actually kind of taught not to talk about our accomplishments at work. We're taught not to ask others for money. All of these things are somewhat counterintuitive, but in the situation that we're in, we've got to, learn some new skills, practice some new things, and it's become clear that grants aren't as reliable as they used to be, and there's less out there than there was before, and it's much more competitive, and so we got to think through some other ways. And I appreciate you, Dwayne, for sharing that. We got to let people know that we got their back and that we're going to be there side by side.
And yeah, I just want to say one more thing. And possible, like, how did you get to where you're at? Did somebody just throw you out there? Why you not treating them how you want to be treated? Why are we not treating everybody like how we got where we at? Why are we not breaking it down, showing them? Because we wouldn't get where we at. We wouldn't be here. None of us wouldn't be here if somebody didn't fight hard for us, with us, to get us there. Somebody had to get you there, right? Somebody walk with you, or you know what it's like to walk with somebody. You learn from somebody. It's all a teaching thing. We all still learning. We learn from somebody every day. You get what I'm saying? So why are we not giving that same back out to everybody else? Because where we at today, we wouldn't be here if there was nobody else to get us here. We all teach each other. We love each other, one another. You know what I'm saying? We have each other back. But I'm just throwing that out there now. I'm done, y'all.
No, I love it. That's what collective power is all about, right? I love it. I love it. Okay, a couple more slides. So the board giving isn't about the amount, it's about participation. When the board participates, when they give, they become owners and not observers, right? Their money is involved here. So that's what we want them to do. When they give, it creates credibility with major donors. Grant applications get scored higher. Board members become those real ambassadors that Chris was talking about, the spokespersons for their organizations. That culture of philanthropy take roots, and then fundraising gets easier for everybody. I told you about the cause cue cards. Think about if you were to create one for your organization, what would they say? Think about short, engaging statements. What's one powerful statistic or one powerful outcome that you've achieved, or one story that you want to tell about, that mother that came into your clinic, it was her last resort, and you guys were able to help her in a way that no one else was able to help her. What's the urgent community need that you address, and why should someone care right now? What's the important part there? Share your ideas. Quick wins. So board campaigns, it's not an individual ask. It's about getting the board mobilized. Make things time bound, give them 30 to 60 days. Celebrate your 100% participation publicly. Post it all over social media. 100% of our board gives, and then put their pictures up there. Say all of these people are giving, so you should too. Give them options, one time, monthly, via payroll, or let them suggest their own amount. Start small, but build that momentum. So another tool that you have in your kit is the 90-day action plan. Days 0 through 3, your quick 30, your quick wins. Days 30 through 60, building momentum, and then 60 to 90, making some more strategic moves because you have more time to plan for those. Don't try to do everything. You don't have to do it all at once. Pick one thing and start next week. So what you have now is your funding mix assessment. You have 50 people who care, an opportunity scan, a 90-day action plan, sample cause cue cards, and a community of peers that are facing the same challenges, right? This community, the power of this community is that you can support one another and reach out to one another and say, I have this idea. What do you think? If you want to schedule a follow-up call with me for some one-on-one support, we have 4 one-on-one slots per month. They're open to all of you on a first-come, first-served basis. Each session will be high level, but it'll be directly related to whatever it is that we talked about. I'm translating these frameworks and tools into your context. So Leah's going to put that link in the chat. And you can also use your phone and scan there if you want to schedule a one-on-one follow-up with me. Would be happy to do that. Any other questions? Because you guys are doing incredible work. Excuse me. You're doing it with limited resources. I get it. But now you got some tools to help you be a little more strategic about it. Just want to say thank you. There's my email, phone number, all of it. Any questions? You have been
I have a question, Alicia.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are a nonprofit, but we have to work through a fiscal sponsor.
Okay.
So when we are acquiring donations, can we acquire the donations? Do they go to our fiscal sponsor? Does it have to be, they are the tax deduction? Is that correct?
Yeah, if you don't have your, no, sometimes people have a fiscal sponsor, but they also have their own 501c3.
Right.
If you do not have your own 501c3, all of the donations have to go through your fiscal sponsor in order for the person to get their tax deduction. Now, if they're a donor advised fund and they've already gotten their tax deduction, they don't have to go through the 501. through the fiscal sponsor. Well, actually, let me hedge on that one. Let me get an answer to that question.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you want to make sure that your donations are going through them. I know what that means is you got to pay your fiscal sponsor. So anything that you take in, they're going to take a cut of that, but the convenience that they provide in terms of all the back office stuff, it's worth it because, you know, otherwise you'd have to hire the staff on your end to do that. So there's value.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? This has been really good. You guys have been a great audience. I appreciate you. Oh, I see some comments in the chat. Is there anything that I missed in the chat earlier, Leah or Brianna? Guys, let's see. Necessary topics. I'm often asked to make introductions to members of my network or fundraising committee to make X amount of introductions. That's wonderful. I like the idea of board members giving a small amount monthly. Yes, that shows their support. Love that. I believe the more you give, the more you get. Absolutely. Love that. An elevator pitch for your board network to know how to talk about your work and ways you can support. That's great. Great, great, great. As a board member, I love direct ask. I love it when it's not a general ask to the whole board. Yeah. Yeah. When it's a specific ask of you, it makes it easy for you to respond to, right? We get asked specifically each board member to approach 5 business foundations about how they can support our work, and we have specific goals for each member. Transparency and accountability, internal confidence and unity. They know you can ask any questions or raise concerns. Everyone's on the same page as a board. Yes. Get extremely creative, do things differently, so you can make your best decision for your community, including their recommendations and input. Yeah, schedule your one-on-one. Can you email me the links? Okay, so yes, we will get those to you. And there's the toolkit. Is it still true that you have 18 months to take donations before you establish your nonprofit? Now that I don't know. We'd have to speak to a financial advisor on that one. I can take that question and get back to you on it. My understanding is that if you have applied and not gotten a letter from the IRS declining your request within 90 days, there's something about that I've heard of, but I don't know exactly the reference. But you have to, I know that you pretty much have to have applied. And if it's just the paperwork issue on the federal government's hands, you know, but you've already gotten your clearance from the state. As a 501c3, you're just waiting on the IRS to make a determination. There is a little bit of a window there. Is anybody familiar with that? Do we have any financial people in the room that know the answer to that question? No. Okay. All right. I will get back to you on that one, though, Thomas. Okay. With that.
Okay. I could try to talk. It's windy and loud in my background. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so basically, if you applied to as a nonprofit and incorporated already, and your intent is to become a 501c3, the IRS used to recognize 18 months onboarding period prior to getting approved for 501c3. But you can take donations to help you with your work and onboard your work. So it used to be that. So don't know if it still is. I got my 501c3 16 years ago. So I would say look that up and make sure that someone's interested in doing it that way versus having a fiscal sponsor.
That's helpful. Thank you.
It also depends on whether you file the short form or the long form. It is, yes, there is a short form process, and then there is a long form process. And I understand if you file the long form, it can take as much as 9 to 12 months for the IRS to even get back to you with any additional questions it has about your application. So it is not a quick turnaround.
Agreed. Agreed. No, thank you for that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I know some of you have other meetings to get to. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you in June. Don't forget to schedule your one-on-one consultation. Looking forward to it.
I'll send all the links and the recording to everyone.
Thank you.